Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. As we usher in the month of February, many will begin to focus on the heart, on love. And as you may have heard me say before, love is an experience, one that is meant to drive us forward and help increase our overall well-being. But below that experience is an action that many of us do not realize is so necessary. That act is living a heart-centered life. What is a heart-centered life? It's a life where we live our daily experiences in true alignment with our values, purpose, inner morality, personal experiences, intuition, and connecting with everything that works for us. Doing so requires that we understand a few basic principles. That's why I sat down with cardiologist and heart-centered living expert, Dr. Madalina Petrescu, who helps us understand how to live through the heart center, how to get into coherence, and why we must allow intuitive directives to be our guide. We even chat about overall health that impacts the heart, and in the end, we talk about the need to live a healthy, grounded, spiritually connected life in order to thrive. This is a powerful conversation filled with tools and ways to create that beautiful heart-centered life. So let's dive right in. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. I am excited to talk about a topic that most of us ignore, and that is our heart intelligence, our heart space. And I actually have the expert with me about the heart in all ways. So please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and the foundation of your work, please.
Absolutely. It is so great to be here and to share this space with you. And so what I do is I work as a cardiologist, but what happened is that many years back, about 10 years ago, I was working as a cardiologist and something happened that brought me back to a much deeper purpose, rather than just physical healing of the heart that I was doing. It brought me to a much deeper healing of what it means to really, truly reconnect with our heart and reconnect with the heart intelligence, which with the threat of humanity, we are really living so commonly disconnected and unaware that we are not connected to our truth and our purpose.
That gave me chills. It gave me chills because it's so true. This is such a deep conversation that many of us need to hear and to have. And one of the biggest things in the work that I've done and all of the studies that I have, gone through is that we are now understanding that the heart gives more signals to the brain than the brain ever does. And people don't understand that if we live from a heart space, life has so much more meaning and purpose. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, especially with the clinical side plus the spiritual and the physical, emotional, mental side of things?
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do that. And I can even use myself as the example and the story, because up until about 10 years ago, I was living life, what I thought to be the right way, successful, what, Matrix considers to be successful, super busy, the mom of 2 girls, married to my husband, and, really serving in what I thought was the right way, taking care of patients with heart disease. But really what was happening is I was literally living life on a survival mode. I was running around, doing, trying to meet all the needs of everyone, trying to do all the stuff and not realizing that I was operating from all kinds of patterns that were completely unconscious to me. I was just operating like a robot in survival, right. Perfectionism, workaholism, overachiever, yes sayer, people pleaser, putting all this pressure and demands on me. And I was just living my life like that. I thought that was the norm. And that's what successful meant. And meanwhile, I wasn't facing like what was really going on, like what my truth was. And I used to use running, the exercise running, as my numbing agent, but really what I would like, so I wouldn't let any emotions, I wouldn't let any feelings, if anything would come up, I would just run. And so I can keep going in that kind of life. And now realizing that I was actually running away from facing my truth, myself, my feelings. And then what happened to me 10 years back is that I had an injury, a severe back pain, severe pain. I really literally was no longer able to walk when I went on a run. And that left me in just like complete confusion. I had all these emotions, I had all these feelings. It ended up evolving into some kind of a crisis. You know, why is just not being able to run created a crisis for me? And then that led into this existential crisis of like, you know, I realized like life was helping me, even though I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to me. It was actually the best thing because here I was like healing other people's hearts, but I really hadn't healed mine and I really hadn't connected to mine. And so I realized like life brought me to a place to stop running and doing and to start being. And I brought all my energy and focus to myself. And that's where I started. And the realizations that I had for my spiritual path is what I use now as the work that I do, which is that I had realized that it was a wake-up call because I was living life completely inauthentically. I was living life as an expression of all kinds of unconscious default patterns that we adopt, you know, that we from society, culture, family, ancestral generations, and, you know, unconscious beliefs and patterns and unhealed wounds operating at the level of the survival pathway, and all of them tracing back to some element of not enoughness, not worthiness, you know, and it's because stuff happens in all of us in childhood where we separate from our heart. You know, we think it's not safe to be us. And so we go to the head, we live life like that to feel safe. And not realizing that all of that stuff is suppressing ourselves, is actually taking us completely away from our true path. And so then I went into the path of like, well, what does it mean to be me? What does that even mean? What is my truth? What is my heart? What is my purpose? What is my vitality? So then the whole process of like feeling, and the heart feels, the mind thinks, the heart feels, and really started feeling, wow, this is who I am. And it's coming to the present, it's coming to the moment, it's accepting, it's expanding. And then realizing that that's where life is at, you know, living life from that space as an expression, as a being of the truth and the love, that I am not going outside to you know, fill up from the outside the illusion of void on the inside, but rather to live life as the expression of who I really am and live in that alignment and that truth. And this is what I do with patients and in the work, and, you know, with the heart intelligence work that we do, is like really kind of to bring people back, you know, bring people back to their heart and remember, feel who they are and live life from that space. So much of the problems and the stress is from that disconnection that happens. And there's all this science, but I'll pause there.
You know, it's so interesting listening to your story, especially about the running. And that was my mechanism as well, right? Let's run, let's get this out, let's move through it. And you know what? I find myself at times when things become too heavy, defaulting back into that, because we all do that, right? It's like, oh, this is a freedom of expression for me, but we always have to come back. So let's talk about how we begin to live a heart-centered life. When someone comes to you and they say, you know, I'm not healthy, maybe in their heart, what are the first steps? How can we identify that we're not living in the heart, as you said, feeling our lives, but more in that chemical compound of brain and thought?
Exactly. And so what happens is that a lot of times when we don't do it for ourselves, life does it for us.
Amen.
Right? Usually like it's like the signals, you know, some people actually start being proactive, you know, they hear about it, but most of the time that's not happening. Most of the time it's some kind of a crisis. And the foundation of that is stress. So it's some kind of severe stress that's resulting in either physical problem or emotional problem or disease or anxiety or depression, where people are just like feeling empty, depleted, unhappy. And, you know, they look at their life and they're like, what, like there's a stress there, but they don't realize that so much of the stress is literally related to the gap between where they are and where their heart wants them to be. And nothing teaches us out there. I mean, I looked at my life and I didn't have someone to say, you know, you don't learn this in school. People are rushed off to academia, learn, you know, do this, perform that, perform the matrix. But no, you know, we don't get this training. We don't get these awakenings until stuff happens in life. And so my greatest mission is basically, you know, I feel people, I can feel where they're at. I can feel what they're ready for. And sometimes, depending on the level of depth and the readiness that they're at, I land it to them in the way that they can receive it. And so sometimes it just starts with small steps. Like, it sounds to me like you're doing everything for everyone, but nothing for yourself. So let's start there. Let's start with you just making space for yourself. Let's shift that paradigm of, I'm going to do everything for everyone. And if there's time, I'll get to me, because that's what we're taught, especially as women. Do everything for everyone and put yourself last. Whereas it's actually a complete opposite. What we need to do is a paradigm shift of serve you, get yourself in that space of like overflow, feel yourself, become present with self-awareness. Like, what do you need? How can you expand in your truth? What is it that makes you come alive? And there's that space that we create, that you start to make that space. And in that space, there's moments of reflection, there's moments of awareness, there's moments of being present, of feeling what there is to feel, and really learning about yourself, opening all these closed spaces that we have created unconsciously. Because there's this weird program that we all have that, against our heart. It's like, no, I need to do what everybody else thinks, because then I'm safe. I need to wear all these masks, because then I'll be accepted and validated and I'll feel safe. And then all these masks we wear, the focus is on the mask and not ourselves. So the very first thing is to go to, like, I really like to go deep. So I go to that core of, bringing the focus back to you, like kind of helping them, to support them, that it's really all about you and not those masks, which people don't even know they're wearing. I had somebody would have said that to me 10 years ago. I would have been like, what are you talking, mask? Are you kidding?
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the things that I have been very diligent about asking the women that sit in session with me is, what does your heart say? And that is a question that most women struggle with. They'll say, well, I think, no, that's not what I said. What does your heart say? And getting into a place that we can really tune in inside and listen to what we are actually saying within ourselves. Because I believe, I'd love to hear your thought about this too. When we are listening with the heart, we're intuitively listening, but we're also listening, feeling emotion, and what is actually soul deep.
You nailed it. And this is what people come, and everyone's really in their mind, but they're not aware. They're like, oh, only stories. Let me tell you all these things. And they go into the story and they're like reciting. It's like a recording, because a program has like these recordings. These are the stories, these are beliefs. So they go into these narratives. That's exactly, what you do is very similar. So I start to ask questions that bring them back to their heart and to feel, to really come into it. And a lot of times it's just asking about feeling related things. So how did that make you feel? What is it that's coming up for you, And so that they can then pause and go to the heart for those questions, because you can't get them up here. My absolute belief in this is that we all have such a deep intuition. It's not like some people, I hear some people have intuition and some people don't.
No.
Everyone's got it. We all have it. Everyone. It's just a muscle. We're just used to living in our head and the stories, and these stories can be quite convincing,
Right.
And so we just need to like really create that space to, how do we bring our awareness, quiet the mind, bring our awareness to the heart, and feel the truth. And the more that we feel ourselves and the more that we feel each other, there's less likelihood to choose. There's also this place where you realize, I have a choice here. I don't need to react to these patterns and these old habits and these things that have been transmitted. It's automatic, it's functioning from the amygdala. But you can actually, in the awareness and the feeling, you can feel what's coming up and then choose. I'm going to choose to feel. And you can, when you feel others, you're not going to react to them, because everyone who's coming up with whatever they're experiencing, a lot of times, we take it personally. And that's because we're focusing on the outer behavior. But if we feel them, then it's really hard to react when you feel people, because a feeling just drops you into compassion. It expands you, and you can see through the veils, my veil and their veil. And that's how true connection really happens. That's the true connection, not at the mask level, but at the pure heart level, at the intuitive level,
I actually call the brain the storyteller and the heart the truth teller.
Yes.
And so if we can get into the place place where the storyteller is quiet and the truth teller is in charge, we actually can get into a place where we have greater connections with not only ourselves, but other people. And so a lot of people will be asking, okay, great, live from the heart. However, I have found out that if I do that in certain relationships, I have gotten hurt. How do I live from my heart and still have boundaries and keep a place where I feel good about my life and myself?
What an amazing question. And this is something my husband and I have been on this path. And, we met 20 years ago when we were totally different people. We were completely unconscious. And so we had, we've been here 20 years later and we both went on our paths. And so we have all these old links to old ways where, kind of like matching of our patterns. And so there's all of that happening. And then as we evolve into now who we are and into our paths, this is the work. This is where the work is happening. And the way that him and I have it, and the way that I recommend in all couples, that the best relationships is that the more in us that we are, and the more in us, meaning the more that we are in ourselves, we live our life unconsciously, like going out of ourselves, with our patternings and with our thoughts and dependency, or what does that person think? And we go into these old patterns, right? So the philosophy is that the more in me that I am, and the way that you get in the more in me is to feel, what is it that's true for me? What is it that I'm feeling right now? And when something is happening, instead of saying, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do, it's more like, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling this. And when we bring from the finger, like bring it here into the I am feeling this, then I'm not going to project on him. He's not going to project on me. And we can speak from a place of feeling. And the more that you are feeling and reorienting your energy to yourself, you can feel, I need my space now. I need to have this boundary. I need, like, him and I have the best relationships when him and I each have our own space to be in our truth, to come into this place of overflow. So that we're not coming from empty, depleted cups, trying to reach to the other to fill the cups. But when I'm really in my own, overflowing cup, and he's in an overflowing cup, and we're coming together, so our connection is going to depend on my connection to me. And, when you're in relationships where it's not happening like that, when one person is in that space, but the other one just chooses not to, then that's of an alarm. That's kind of telling you, well, is this for me? And the thing with the heart, and this is a crazy thing that took me a long time, the heart is not going to tell you what you like to hear. Actually, that's the mind. The mind's going to convince you. The heart is going to tell you some things that may radically mess up your life.
Right.
And it's going to tell you things that don't even make sense. Like, what is that? So our minds, if we try to understand it, usually we convince ourselves out of it. Right. So it's really trusting. Okay, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this person. I'm feeling myself that I need my space right now. So it's really tuning in, and the heart is the guidance, no matter where you're at. And even when you have issues, and I'm not always in a full cup, it doesn't mean that that's how I live life as an expression, but then I'm honest with myself. Then I say, the heart is honest. So I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm getting triggered right now. As my reaction, what I'm doing right now, is that honest? Where is that coming from? Is that coming from some old wound that I haven't, healed? Or is it coming from a place of truth of my heart? So there's this deep honesty that we're constantly in that reflection as I'm moving through life. There's this place of constant connection and with our hearts. And that's the guidance. And as you know, with heart math, that the heart is mentally, we have more afferents going to the brain than the other way, which, by the way, in medical school, that's not taught, research. But then, and when the heart is leading the way, there's a state of coherence that's happening. You're actually activating your conscious brains. You have higher IQ. You're deactivating the amygdala. You have a higher EQ. And then you're turning on all the well-being hormones, you're upregulating all these genes and health, lengthening the telomeres. It's a coherence,
Let's talk about coherence, because it is something that I've spent a lot of time trying to teach, certainly in private session. And it's something that most people do not know what it is. As a cardiologist, as someone who's doing this heart intelligence work, I'd love for you to kind of walk us down the coherence pathway so that the women that listen to this podcast understand it's available to them And then let's talk about how we get there.
Yeah. So this is what I practice even when I go with patients, when I
Mhm.
see patients or when I walk with clients in their journeys, is that our hearts are actually very sensitive to what we are experiencing. So
Mhm.
I'm going to go to kind of two extremes. So when there's a state of stress versus when there's a state of being in your heart, the heart has pattern of the heart rate. There's a variability. So you don't need to know all about that, just to know that there's a pattern that we have, and the heart is sensitive to that. So when we're in a stress state, the heart can feel that. The heart can record that. And when that happens, when there's a state of stress, when we're in judgment, in anger, frustration, reactivity, triggers, the heart records that. And there's a pattern that is created by the heart, which is via the heart rate variability. It's a pattern that you can record. And when there's a stress, the signal becomes really chaotic. It's a chaotic signal. And that's sent to the brain. And the brain is saying, oh my God, bad, danger, not safe, so then the heart creates all these stress hormones, floods your body and your whole entire system with cortisol, adrenaline, fight, flight, sympathetic nervous system, and you're ready for battle,
Right.
And so all it takes is even just a negative thought or some fatalistic thought or some worry that you just can't stop thinking. And that's enough to do it. That's a thing. Like in the older days, it used to be the bear, or like war or fire. Nowadays, it's just our thoughts. It's our stories that we scare ourselves with. And then we create all of this, and then the body's flooded and we get tense. Everything shuts down to be able to be in that battle. The heart gets stressed out. Your genes are actually upregulating disease, downregulating well-being hormone. You can't heal. You cannot heal when you're in this state. It's impossible. You cannot heal when you're in the constant survival state. And that's what's happening. And you get more reactive because the amygdala is trying to save you. So then you're just in this reaction state, and it's bad for you. It sets you up for diseases. 90% of all the diseases are coming from some severe stress.
Right.
And whereas when you get in a state of coherence, meaning you connect to your heart, you get in a state of compassion, you get in a state of care, you are coming back to yourself. What happens is the heart can feel that, and it records a coherent signal via the heart rate variability. And then that gets transmitted waveform to the brain, and the brain sees that as, oh, everything is well, wonderful. So then the brain creates all these well-being hormones in your body, and your body's flooded with these well-being hormones, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. And now your body's relaxed. Now you're in the parasympathetic nervous system. You're actually upregulating this has been studied. You're upregulating all these genes that create well-being and health hormones that can heal you. Like, this has literally been studied. Your telomeres are lengthened, longevity. You have vitality, and your heart also creates an electromagnetic field. So you create vitality, well-being. Your conscious brain is activated. Your reactivity is really reduced. And now there's a state of coherence in your whole entire being. And the way that you can tell is the way that you feel. You feel this state of expansion, of connection to yourself, of connection with the world. And in that state, that's when you are in yourself. You're not leaving yourself, you're in yourself. And from that space, it becomes like a capacitor, a container, where now you can bring all the other stuff in there. And I got it. I got me. I can bring my feelings. I can bring my worries because I got me. So we always want to get in a state of coherence before we start dealing with all this stuff.
Yes.
Connect with others. So that's what I do. And even with patients, they're coming in with all stuff. I get myself because, I serve to others who I am. It's my energy, not my words. It's who I am. And so that's something for me that I do when I work with others, and I get myself in this state. And then that's what I'm transmitting. And then, the other thing is like the energies, whoever has a higher, stronger energy, that's the one that entrains everything else in it. It's the dominant energy. And sometimes some of the energies out there in the world, they're really strong. I mean, I work with that. So I've learned, I'm like, if I don't do this for myself every single morning, I'm getting hijacked either by others' energy or by my own freaking energy, right? I'm getting hijacked. And then I'm just like surviving, putting out fires. Oh my God. And it doesn't feel good. And I just get myself right back into the stress. So this is like why no matter what, I do not leave my house. My day starts out with practices where I'm in this state, knowing that of course I fall. So it's not like the heart, you're not meant to be here like all the time. That's just not humanly possible. It would be in heaven. But the whole point is that I create that for myself. And then I go out in life and then, I've left myself. Okay, I'm going to come back. So it's like the resilience is I'm coming back to myself. I'm coming back through the day constantly with self-awareness, non-judgmental self-awareness, honest self-awareness. So that's a little bit of that.
It's brilliant. The way that you explained it is so clear and so on point. I loved what you just said. If I do not get into a state of coherence, I am hijacked by other things and myself. That's probably one of the most fundamental statements that have ever been said on 100 and plus episodes of this podcast, because it is so true. Hijacked. Think about that, ladies. What a great visual that is for all of us to understand that if we are not in coherence with ourselves, we'll talk about how we get there in just a moment. But if we are not in a place of regulation, we can have a moment where everything goes wrong for us because we're allowing it to, right? We're willingly allowing the things to dysregulate us. Hijack. It's what a brilliant word to use. Thank you for that. So great. Let's talk about how we get into a state of coherence. There are practices. Breath work is one of the most fundamental ways to get into the heart, to regulate our nervous system, to shut off all of the bad and turn on the good. You mentioned that you do personal practices in the morning, and I'm sure you're teaching those to clients and patients. Can you offer some that these ladies could do and perhaps begin to get into a state of coherence?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that word because it feels so true.
It is true. Yeah.
Not overcome doesn't even describe it. Hijack,
No.
you literally become like, and the hijack, by the way, is by the stress hormones. The saying, many roads lead to Rome. There is no one way. Like I've done so much stuff and everybody's like, oh, there's this one thing, I personally don't agree with that. I feel like there are so many things, and you find out by being curious and trying, oh, this works for me, well, that works for me, and trusting yourself, like, oh, this feels really good. Oh, I'm feeling it here. And then also as we go through life, that might change. What worked before may not work, and you may need to go deeper. You may try different things. There's so many things available. So for me, I don't have like fixed things that I do exactly the same every single. I go with like, what am I feeling today? And so I really create that, because then we get into this like fixed things that I must do, that I have to do. And then that's also the mind. So it's like, what am I feeling? And I have a bucket of things, so for me, depends on where am I at. I check in with myself when I'm waking up. Sometimes I wake up with like thoughts that are going 1,000 miles a minute. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on with me today? Like, I'm honest, right? So then if there's a lot of noise up here, then I can't go meditate. Like I'm going to sit there and meditate, and like stuff is running crazy. So depending on where I'm at, if I'm having a lot of like feelings, if I'm having a lot of mental stuff, then I may need to go into nature, go for a run, do some dance practices, do some journaling to like just almost get it out. There's stuff that wants to, emotion is energy in motion. So motion is so important. So I'm feeling, okay, I have a drum. I'll start drumming or dancing or running, and nature really helps. Breath work, and for me personally, meditation is incredibly powerful. And I know that I have patients and they're like, oh my God, like meditation, that's just impossible. I can't sit still. Somebody would have told me that I'm going to meditate 10 years ago. I would have said, what a waste of time. Are you kidding me? I am like running everywhere. You're going to tell me to stay still? That's like the greatest torture. Like, torture me, but really what it is, meditation is not a fixed thing where you make yourself not think. And you have to do it, and you can't leave your chair, and you have to sit in this position because that's what the experts say. Like, I don't think that. For me, meditation really all it means is being with yourself. Just being with yourself and getting in tune with like, what am I feeling? Maybe you might want to sway, you might put on some music, you might be outside and just feeling yourself, feeling all parts of you, getting into that, okay, that's where I'm at right now. Okay, maybe you need to sway, and then remembering who we are, connecting to our hearts, connecting to the depth of the presence of that moment, and experiencing our truth and our expansiveness and our vastness. And then when you are feeling in that, you're like, oh, wow, this is who I am. And it's a feeling. experience. For some people, meditation might be going into the woods, touching the ground, connecting with the trees. Nature has a way of bringing us back to our true nature. So it's all of that. So, sometimes I need to run like crazy because stuff is happening, and I run, and then I can relax into myself.
Right.
So that's like some of the practices. Journaling, reflecting, creativity work is so powerful. Like that's I write poetry. Again, 10 years ago, you would have said, I'm a writer. I would have said, I'm not creative. What are you talking about? There's so many gifts that ladies you have out there. But we just need to get curious and let go of these limiting beliefs that suppress us and work against us. We have so many gifts like want to come out in the world, and bring us into our vitality and purpose and truth.
We have to give ourselves permission, is what you're saying. Give yourself permission. I hear that all the time. Well, I can't write. I'm not a writer. I bet if you just let go of that statement, I can't, and get into I will try, or I am doing, or anything I am, things will change for you. Purpose and, intention, getting into a space where you allow is so important. I love what you said about meditation. Obviously I'm a meditation teacher, and one of the things that is so important to understand is that anything can be a meditation. If you're standing in the shower and you are just present and you're feeling every thing that's happening around you, that can be a meditation. It doesn't have to be this existential situation. It can be just you being alone, quiet, and in a space where you are aware, present, and in coherence.
Yes. I love that. And if you look at that and we magnify that a bit more, what I've discovered is that when we do that, you activate your true essence. Because otherwise we're rushing through those moments, going to the next thing, and we're not really present, and we're missing the moment of where you're at. It doesn't matter. Like right here, you and I, in this moment, that we are so present. And when we're so present and bringing that energy here, not all of it out there in the mind, we're just right here. There's a sense of aliveness.
Yes.
People think meditation, it's like, people try to get that feeling by jumping out of the airplanes, going into these, rock climbing on the cliffs, because they're looking for that feeling of, I'm alive. I don't just exist. I'm alive. And when you start practicing the muscle of this meditation, which just means I'm just going to be here right now with me. I'm going to come back to me. There's this feeling of aliveness that is happening in me. And I'm like, wow, I'm so alive. And that's just because I'm being present. I'm bringing my energy, my focus right here in this space. And that's where life is happening. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right here, the being. We're not human doings, we're human beings. And it's just being in that moment, that depth, that magnitude.
And I have a challenge that actually can prove exactly what you're saying. So I challenge you, ladies, if you haven't really started living from this space or doing these things, this entire podcast is always built with all of those things that you can do. Take a photo of yourself right now and then practice these things for 5 times a week. I'm not asking you to commit to 7. And then in 6 months, take another photo and see what you see. It is such a beautiful thing. I can look back at photos from 10 years ago and see that I look younger now than I did then, right? So there's the physical proof that these things really create life within you.
Oh my God, I am like getting chills right now because it is so true. It is like incredible. It's so, so true. And you can tell when people are practicing all of this because you look in their eyes and there's this aliveness. There's like, it's like lights are on and I'm home. That's the feeling. I'm like, wow, that person is home. Like they're on, they're here, they're present. Whereas like sometimes you look at eyes and you're like, whoa, like there's darkness. They're not there.
Yeah.
They're in the pain. And I feel compassion for that, but you can tell. And it's really amazing what you're saying about that, because I see so many patients and so many clients, and I can sense like what's going on with someone just even by their looks. And I'll like, wow, they're 40 and they look like 80. And that's because they've just living in that stress, whereas Like seriously, 20 years. And I ask patients, I'm like, I go in and I'm like, wow, what is it? What's going on here with you? Because you look so young.
Yeah.
And then when I ask them, because I get curious, this is what they say, that there's like, they have a purpose, they have a vitality, they're living their life, and there's a aliveness, that's in the ikigai in Japanese is like purpose, I'm living on purpose. It's one of the 5 things that in the blue zones is shown to be associated with longevity. Right. So yeah, so true.
Yes. I love that you brought up purpose, because if we live in purpose, then we are heart-centered. If we're living in these spaces where ego is off to the side and we're truly living as self, heart is activated. Can I ask, I think it's a question that popped in my mind. I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear your take on it. Outside of hereditary issues, when you see someone who has cardiac issues, is it generally related to stress, diet, and not living as their full heart-centered self? If you could trace it back, is that what you mostly see?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It is absolutely incredible. And that's when 10 years ago, and even what I get taught in medical school, what everybody gets taught, like there's a surface, like here's the ocean and it's like all the surface. So people are coming in, oh, here's a medication, oh, here's a procedure, see you later, make sure and there's a surface, right? And that's where everything is operated. And that's why it feels kind of empty there, But then when you go into the vastness and the depth of the ocean, there is so much there. Right. And of course, there is some genetical stuff. Of course, like we honor that, we see that, of course. But in my experience, it is absolutely exactly that. If you trace it back, and I almost can feel it in people, like I see that it's almost being like, I think I've done it for so long that this muscle, I can almost sense like where it's really traced to so disconnected from the heart, living life on these paths, totally misaligned, not in truth. And that is one of the greatest sources of unfulfillment and depression, unconsciously lost, looking for things, getting distracted, even like a heart problem. And they get so distracted. Let me take these medications and I use my energy for that. But that is just a signal. And it's a signal for the heart saying, come back to me. Right. Come back to the aliveness, the core, the truth, the purpose. And people, because they're not living in their heart, they're coming from up here. And when you're coming from up here, you're living from the nervous system. That's the one in charge. So they don't do these things that are good for them. They don't exercise. They don't spend time with themselves. They don't eat healthy. They make choices that are coming from fear and survival. And it's that stuff, all of that creates so much of the disease and so much of the problems. I had a patient that I saw the other day, last week, and, he was crying when I saw him. He was literally a man in tears. And because he's like, I have my life back. Because when I had seen him, he was in so much depression and anxiety, and he was having palpitations and hypertension, and, he's overweight, pre-diabetes, and some beginning of heart disease. And then I looked at everything and I felt, okay, he's ready. He's ready to hear all of it. Sometimes I start with diet and exercise because it's easy to swallow that. He's ready for the whole thing. So I went on the whole thing and I helped him to see like that. There is this calling, and that's the palpitations. The heart is knocking on the door, like, come back to me. Hypertension is the stress that's happening. Blood pressure is up because there's a war going on inside me against myself that I don't even know is happening. So he practiced all these things, months later after I had talked to him, and he came and he's like, I'm doing all of it. And he had lost weight and he was meditating and he was taking that time for himself, eating right. Food is medicine, right? So then when you do that. And so then he's like, wow, I feel, people, the reason that all of that is happening is because people are not feeling themselves. Right. They're living life and it's like, it's not really me. It's not really my life. And that's why it feels so bad. But when you're like living in you and in your heart, it feels so good, so right. Even when things go wrong, you're like, it's okay, because you're living here. And that's why it feels really different. That's how you know. And so I would even say, look at it. Like if I were to go back and somebody would have told me, I would say, you won't have to suffer. You can say, life is a journey. I'm here. All of us are here. And we're in the journey back to our heart. So let's get curious. Like young children, instead of making it hard and stressful and to pain and tension, we can also have an attitude of curiosity and enjoying, like being part of the experience. We're all connected as human beings in our pains and nobody's waking up and living life in that inner wisdom. So let's enjoy that coming back to ourselves. Let's learn from our lessons, let's pick ourselves up. Let's connect with others. Let's reach out for help. So there's this like, even if you're 80, you can still enjoy the journey.
Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say a quote that I absolutely love, and I know you probably have heard it: dis-ease creates disease. And the reason why I ask that question is because a lot of times women do not understand that it's all connected. Your physical pain, your physical disease is connected to your dis-ease. Your mental issues are really being created by your emotional situation. Your trauma in your past is holding you in place. All of these things are taking you away from this life that you can create for yourself. And it's not too late, and it's not too difficult, and it does require work, but you can do it if you show up. I love that you're taking a different approach. Many physicians still to this day don't have enough training when it comes to food and to exercise and to mental and emotional stress and situations. And it is just this pill factory where people are not being healed. Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's really not healthcare. It's really disease care.
Right.
And they're just putting out fires. They're just putting on Band-Aids. And that's what the training is.
Yeah.
So there's a whole paradigm shift that we need to even go back to how medicine is practiced and what people are learning. Before you serve others, heal yourself, make that space. I mean, it's so opposite in medical. In the hero in our training was the one that slept the least, sacrificed the most, performed and served the most from the most empty cup possible. And that was the hero. And it's programmed. And it's not just medical school, it's just all over the world.
Everywhere.
It's programmed that the more that I do, the martyr, and the less for me, I am the hero. And it's like so opposite of that. It's like completely a paradigm shift of like, no, the more of me that I am in the world. The more of me, I am the change that I want to. Like, you want to change the world, you come back to yourself. Change yourself to change the world. Wayne Dyer, it's funny you said that, because when I started my healing path, there were 2 books that fell into my lap where nothing was working. I tried everything 1 year into my efforts, and I'm a very determined, person. I was like, nothing is helping me here. And I'm like frustrated, unhappy, rock bottom. And then these 2 books fell into my lap. You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer. And then Wayne Dyer. And like, these are the 2 that I started out with, so it's interesting that you made that comment about him. And he has another amazing comment that I like. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a fundamental way to live. Right. And another thing that he would say was be open to everything, closed to nothing. And that's what we're really asking you to do today, is to be open to yourself, be open to whatever path you have to take in order to live a heart-centered life, and know that if you close your life to the things that could work for you, or will work for you, I should say, you don't get the healing, beautiful path. You live in the same kind of rat race and the same mundane situation on this journey. And, one of the things that I hear so often is, this is not how I thought my life was going to go. And then I say, okay, so what are we going to do about it?
Oh, I love that. I love that, because when you say that first, this is how my life I thought was going to go, there's an element of, look what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get stuck in there, and then they get stuck in these loops, these little loops. Look what's happening to me. Look at my pain. And then they get into this victim energy.
Yeah.
And then you just like, the victim energy literally wipes you out, like hijacks your whole entire body and self, and it separates you from yourself. And then what you said next is exactly, okay, I'm here. Okay, I'm here. I accept my situation. Now, what can I do? How can I be my own hero? Instead of looking something to rescue you, how can I then be that hero? Like, we are all here to be our own heroes. Like, okay, I got me here. I'm going to get me out of here. I put myself in this box is what I realized once. Okay, I got me in this box. I created this box. Okay, you know what? I can disrupt this box, and I can get myself out of this box. We are our own saviors, and we don't have to do it alone. A community is important, getting, with your friends, getting with people that you can connect with, getting the support you need. Because sometimes, I realized I was doing things on my own, but, Einstein, you can't solve the problem or the same consciousness that created it. So if
Right.
I'm trying to come out of my mind on my own, well, I'm just doing the same things that I've known. So being open is so true. Like being open to new things that you thought, what? That's crazy. That's weird. Just be open.
Yeah.
Be open and
Yeah.
try it out. It doesn't work. Okay, awesome. You tried it. Go to the next thing.
Right. There's a million other tools. There's a million other practices. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's okay. Let's find the next thing. If someone was to come into your office and you saw all the things that were happening, is there sort of a checklist? I'm doing air quotes right now that you would say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then come back and see me in 3 months. For the women that are listening, what would be X, Y, and Z?
If I'm going to give it all to them, again, it depends. Some people are like really closed.
Sure.
So then I have to go small seeds. But if I'm going to go like what I really, my intention is to have them open, I start with letting them know that the true healing, besides, okay, we're going to take care of, okay, you got this problem. Let's manage it. Let me give you all the things that's going to help you. Let's get all the tests. Let's figure things out. And okay, now let's also go deeper. Let's look at yourself. Let's open you to yourself and to your life and to truth. And so to do that, let's do the healing in a very holistic way. So we need to look at our bodies as a temple. You know, we need to honor our bodies. We need to bring that self-love. So I talk about what are the practices for them to start honoring their body by bringing, eating food that is medicine. Nobody knows out there, but all the stuff that people are eating is just like pro-inflammation. And so you're trying to like create the spiritual experience, but eating inflammatory stuff. It's like creating a war against yourself. So like, eating the things nourishing, plant-based has been shown to be the greatest healing. I mean, there's studies, and no question that when you look at something that you're eating, ask yourself, is this pro-life or pro-inflammation? I say that to myself. Oh, wow. Okay. That may taste good for the first second, but then it's going to create like nausea and sickness and tiredness and get my energy low. So then that, however, is going to create life in me, so I have my green shakes and people have this myth that, healthy food doesn't taste good. Oh my God, what a myth. What a myth. Like I love good food. I will not put something in my mouth unless it's delicious. And there is so much good food out there if you just get curious and look. So food, we need to honor our bodies, right? The same exercise, getting out, moving your body, getting fit, getting exercise, honoring yourself for that, creating a practice that we are devoted to and committed to, coming up for ourselves, and then so it's physical, emotional, spiritual. So that's physical and emotional. Let's feel what's coming up. Let's be present to our emotions. We go to the doctor for the physical. What about the emotional stuff? That's the one causing all the physical stuff. So let's come back and say, okay, and we may need help with that. There is so much trauma that people have that they're not even realizing is operating, and you really it's where they're coming from. So let's go into that. Let's love what's coming up with ourselves. Let's look at our feelings. Let's look at our emotions. Let's journal. Let's get help if we need something. Let's feel our feelings and have healthy way to manage our emotions, so we don't show up to others in a triggered state, but from a heart state, so we don't go reacting all over the world, and that's just creating more problems. And we come back to heart acting, and then the third part is the spiritual part where, okay, how do we create that heart-centered living? Okay, we talked about these two things. Now, how do we come back to you? How can you create? And we cannot do that. Like you said, we cannot do that unless we put ourselves first, unless we create that space for ourselves. We start with that. That's where we start. And in that place, you have the self-awareness. You have the space of how can I be more of me and less of what is not me? And that's a growth. It's a forever life journey. And so then you say, okay, what's more of me? Okay, you go there. And you expand there. Okay, what am I doing that's really not me? And so then you go through these practices of, okay, what patterns do I need to let go of? What habits do I need to let go of? What are the things that are working against me that I'm doing? And we do that with self-awareness, non-judgment. And I think it's the judgment that usually people take them away from that self-awareness. You have this way of compassion. I'm a human being and I'm honest with myself. And then you connect with yourself and you take hard-aligned action. So these are the things that, I go through in general with whether it's patients or whether it's clients or it's just approach. It's what I learned and it's what I do, and it's what I am, and that's what I practice, and that's what I recommend.
I love every bit of those recommendations. It's so important to realize they all matter. They're all connected. I will often say to someone that comes in that says, all these things are happening. And I would say, well, you know what? Your emotions right now are really getting the best of you. We need to look at it like a virus. It is taking over. It is really making you feel bad. And always, what are we going to do to treat the virus? And if we can treat the virus, then we can open the door. And that really kind of shifts for a lot of people. I'm with you. I've been plant-based for, I don't know how many years now. A lot, many, many years. And, we have a way of treating our bodies in a way that isn't just with a pill, that isn't just by over exercising, but we have to fundamentally look at what can we do long-term that feeds not only the body, but also the soul.
That's why you have such amazing skin.
Oh,
because you have the people that are plant-based, literally, it's like your skin is youthful, the things go away, all these allergies and all these inflammatory stuff, the low energy state, it just disappears,
It does.
It's like, and then you make space. Oh, okay, I can make space now for myself to unfold. Our bodies are a temple. It's amazing. The people who are plant-based, they really have this youthful, beautiful skin, all of it. I really know. I notice that.
Thank you. That and the gallon of water every day. Do the water, ladies. Make sure you're drinking the water.
Absolutely.
My goodness. What a beautiful conversation. Did we leave anything out that you feel that women should know?
I would say from all the things we discussed, there are two more things that I would recommend. I think we've covered a lot. I would say how important it is, and this is what I do, as we go through the moment to moment, small decisions, small choices, or big choices, to really pause and slow down and really ask ourselves, before I say this thing, before I do this thing, where is this coming from?
Right.
Is this coming from a pattern, a story that I'm telling myself, from the nervous system? Or is this coming from myself, from my heart, from my truth? And that, to me, that check-in, I cannot tell you how powerful that has been for me, because so much of life is growing out of the pattern that we grew into growing up, but we can't do that without that constant, loving, because if we judge, oh, look what I'm doing, oh my God, I'm just sabotaging myself, so, but it's like, oh, here I go again. Oh, I'm just totally judging that person. Okay. It's a human thing. We all do it. Okay. So what am I choosing right now? Okay. I was judging right now. Okay. I was criticizing right now. Okay. I was frustrated and blaming. Okay. I see that. What can I do? What's true right now for me? How can I respond now from my heart? So then I do that, so it's just it's like this kind of word, like life, a moving prayer, that we are in ourselves as we're going through life. Oh, okay, we're separate. Okay, we come back. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to really emphasize, I cannot tell you how important it has been for me and even patients to take heart-aligned action. So many times I see people and I tell them stuff and I know. Like, I already know this stuff. Like, I hear this all the time. I already know. And then I will say, well, you know what? Knowing doesn't really help us. Knowing is great. We get to know, but if we know the right thing, but we don't do anything about it, it actually creates awareness hell. It actually sucks you in even deeper. And this is what I've noticed, that people that know a lot but don't do anything, they're just like prisoners. So I would say, start acting. Okay, this is your thing. Take one step. Sometimes the overwhelm of all the things that have to be done. So just take one step. What's the next best step for me? Start with small steps, easy steps, Okay, I want to be fit because I honor my body. Okay, what is something that I can do that's sustainable, that I can commit to, that I honor myself? And how can I set myself reminders and celebrations to say, keep going, and not get hijacked by the old habits saying, just don't do it, just stay in bed and forget, So there's like the heart aligned action, we got to take action. We got to be our own advocates, because nobody's going to do it for us. We are the creators of our lives. We are the ones that's going to take us back to our hearts and back to our truth and purpose.
Yeah. I want to say the first one is exactly what I always tell you, ladies, is to hold space for yourself. Stop and hold space. And the second, what you said about awareness hell is so true. I see it every day. I'm aware that I'm making bad choices. I'm aware that I'm doing things that are working against me. I am aware because you've told me all these things. However, I don't know what to do now. And I say, are you making a choice and are you taking action? And those are the two things. You can be aware all day long, but if you're not making a choice and you're taking action, awareness is going to be prison. So please do take a step. Do it. It's best for everything. And that is how we get into coherence as well, right? So everything comes back to the heart if we allow it to.
Beautiful words, how they landed. And I would say the best time to start is now, not tomorrow. Yeah. Now, right now, like in this moment, what is my next step I can take right now, today?
Agreed. I always end every podcast in the same way, and it is with 3 gratitudes. So your gratitudes for whatever it is, whether it's personal or professional, or even 3 things that you wish that we didn't talk about that you want the women to know. So I'll leave it to you. What are your 3 things?
3 things that I'm grateful for. I am so grateful, first and foremost, for this moment that you and I shared, of really sharing the wisdom, sharing the love, and feeling so alive with you, because I can sense that we are the same foundation, same mission in life. And there's nothing that brings me more joy than to connect with people that have the same medicine for people, the medicine of love and of heart. The second thing that I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for you. I love what you're doing. And
thank you.
I love so much. I read everything that you're doing, and it is so important because, had I heard, let's say, your podcast at some point in my growth, maybe I would have started earlier. Maybe something would have happened, seeds would have been implanted. This is not found in our school and training.
Right.
This is just not there. So this is so important because the words that we speak are impacting others, are making roots in others to flower up their own trees. And so I'm grateful for you. And I'm grateful for my journey. I feel so grateful. At one point, I thought, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. What is even life all about? And I'm so grateful for all those difficulties, because I found it allowed me those challenges, and I feel challenges it almost stimulate us to be all of me, to come back into me so I can take this challenge and be my own hero. So I'm grateful for me, and having this conversation reminds me of how grateful I am that I showed up for myself and I answered the calling of my heart. And I have a pager and I take all the pagers and the calls from others. But you know what? 10 years ago, I took my own call. And I'm so grateful I did that, because now I'm here with you and sharing my true purpose in life.
What a beautiful way to put that. I answered my own call. I honor you. I honor our time together, this beautiful conversation that I hope it impacted you ladies, because it certainly has impacted me. And just remember, take heart, be in your heart, and live from it. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, and all of the beautiful work you're doing for everyone that has the honor and pleasure of being in front of you and with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There are so many takeaways from this conversation. When we live from the heart and allow our inner guidance system to rule instead of the boxes we place ourselves or others try to force us into, we also find a natural rhythm to one of the greatest gifts we could ever receive, the gift of coming home to ourselves and being one with our mind, body, and soul. If you would like to find out more about Dr. Madalina, you can connect with her on her website at www.heartq, that's the letter Q.com. You can also find her on Instagram at HeartQOfficial and on TikTok at HeartQ86. You can also check the show notes for direct links. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and tools, please follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also visit the show notes, my blog, or my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.